Hey out there. Yeah, I'm in Chico, California. It's the morning of November 24th, 2013. And I wanted to touch on a couple of things this morning that are on my mind that I think are important. And one of them is this 50-year celebration of the assassination of President JFK. John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And, Alex Jones had his crew, his reporters. A lot of them were down at the Daily Plaza in Dallas, Texas, protesting this meeting of a handful of chosen, shall we call, people for a televised event to celebrate the life again of JFK. And what Alex Jones and the other people that gathered together there, which it looked like it numbered in the thousands, are upset about is the mainstream, which is really not even any longer the mainstream media, but their usurpation of this event, the controlled usurpation. And it's come to light that mainstream media stations are paid not only for the stories they tell, but the ones they don't tell. There's so many conflicts of interest working within the mainstream media. It's a miracle we can get any truth out of these people at all, But the gist of what I'm trying to say is that they're not trustworthy, and Alex Jones was over there pointing this out. And it's very important that people understand the critical nature of exposing this deceit, because it is deceit. The stories that are being told are every bit as important as the stories that are not being told. And the fact is we're not getting the truth. The majority of people don't believe the story, the official story, the Warren Report and whatnot that's been handed to us, nor should they. But the mainstream media, I noticed recently, was quick to point out that although the majority of Americans still don't believe the official story, it's dwindling. So in other words, they're trying to popularize the idea of reversing this trend and having people slowly get off this idea that there was any kind of a conspiracy behind the assassination and get on board with the pragmatic ones, those with common sense, the establishmentarians, to get on board with their line of thought. And I also find that repugnant. And now Alex and his reporters and the protesters that were gathered there had a confrontation with the police because the police were trying to designate certain free speech areas like you might find in a communist country like North Korea. And they weren't having any part of it, and I don't blame them. The problem is that there was an awful lot of rather large, brutish-looking law enforcement officers on the front lines, almost like it was a football match or something. And the establishmentarians had outdone the protesters. But nobody wanted any violence anyhow, and there was very little except for some of the protesters getting struck a few times. Purportedly, Alex got punched a few times. And they were bullying to keep them away from the establishment event, the controlled establishment mainstream media event. And JFK would have been appalled at them keeping these protesters out of this celebration. I mean, let's face it. The guy was against secrecy. And he knew that the people of America were not cowards. And he himself said, we will never surrender or submit to tyranny. And somebody else said the exact amount of tyranny we live under is the exact amount we accept. So by tolerating injustice, lies being perpetrated by the mainstream media and the establishmentarians involved thereof, the politicians, top policymakers that create the policeable, enforceable laws, they're corrupt. So we have to define who the government really is, because the government is supposed to be we the people. That's each and every citizen of the United States of America. And the politicians are our servants working for us. We hired them to do a job for us. And as everybody knows, they keep taking us down paths we don't want to go. And they keep lying to us and forcing us down this path. And the establishment media and all the establishmentarians out there, whether advertently, inadvertently, intentionally, or unintentionally, they keep foisting this lie on us because it's benefiting them. They don't want to rock the boat. Okay, it's working for them. Okay, they've got a portfolio. They've got things to protect. They're vested in this current establishment. And they don't want the thing to fall apart, even though they're the ones that instigated it falling apart. Okay, one thing that JFK understood, people like Ron Paul understand, people like Adam Smith understand, Max Kaiser, and so many other economists out there and people that are knowledgeable about economics will tell you, is that without sound currency, you're never going to solve the problems. Okay? Now, none of those cops out there that were bullying the protesters around would have been out there if they weren't scared, fearful, insecure. And what of financial insecurity? Okay? That's a real form of fear. And it's the way that this God of this world, this money God, usurps reverence, because fear and reverence are actually very closely related. You can look the word up for yourself. And what we are to do is be reverent to one, to be faithful to one, and that's our connection to God is our conscience. So to be true to ourselves is critical in this matter. And it's no fun standing up against the establishmentarians. But you know what? It's something that's got to be done. And the most important thing I think we need to remember is that we need to speak truth to these people. We need to help them understand why they are behaving the way they are, because they're scared that they're going to not have a job, okay? And, they won't have money. So this is all what it's about. And if we had sound currency, folks, gradually it'd create a rising tide of prosperity that lifted all ships. Okay, and this is what the oppressors know, and this is what they cannot tolerate. So you understand, they don't want to see your money worth more every day, because that would be the result of sound currency. They don't want that, because that would lift people out of poverty. That would virtually end crime. That would virtually end war. I mean, people, they don't go off to war because, they don't need money. Okay, let's face the reality of it. And people don't create crimes of financial desperation unless they need the money. Let's be honest about it. Okay, now, I take that back a little, because during the Second World War, to fight Hitler, I think I would have paid to go fight in that war. So there are these wars out there that could be based on justice, in a sense. But we've got to be very circumspective when we talk about just wars and whatnot. But if you do have a genocidal maniac like Hitler or Stalin or Mao or Pol Pot or Lenin or on and on, I mean, these people have risen up through the ages. Nero, I mean, there's been all these maniacs, Caligula. It goes on and on, these psychopathic dictators that just want to run roughshod over the populations of the world. So we really need to get to the bottom of it and really understand, okay, I would say this to the protesters and the cops that were supporting the establishmentarians, that were defending them, that were protecting the establishment, okay, that is just robbing Americans every which way from Sunday, okay. They're selling our great-great-grandchildren into a debt they don't want repaid. They want to pile more and more debt on top of us. and just take it out on the poor. It's like human sacrifice, this social Darwinism, where it's survival of the strongest. So those that fit into the system, you'll get to survive, but you've got to conform. You've got to do what the system tells you to do and not do what it tells you not to do. And this is not the world we want to live in. We refuse to. We don't tolerate it. We never will tolerate it. We will never surrender or submit, like JFK said. Okay, so get any elitists out there listening, you understand that loud and clear. This thing is not going away. Okay, the light of truth is growing with each passing day. Okay, there's not a damn thing you can do to stop it. Not all the forces combined of darkness can stop this thing from happening. It's literally like the return of Jesus is happening in slow motion, because it keeps building and building and building, and these people are exposed. They're completely naked. We see through their lies and deception, because they knew eventually you'd understand the things I understand, the things that they understand. Okay, that there is no reason in the world why everybody on earth cannot live in total financial prosperity. Okay, there's no logical reason. If there is plenty of everything, that means there's plenty of everything. Okay, and unless you want to do without, then you cannot condone others doing without. Not in any conscience you can't. And so this is really what it all comes down to: haves and have-nots. And they want the have-nots because they know if you saw crime starting to plummet, you'd say, hey, this is working. I like this sound currency thing. Let's protect it. Let's make sure we've got accountability. We've got checks and balances, that we can hold market manipulators and price fixers' feet to the fire and say, you know what, it's your fault, okay, that the cost of living went up. So that's why we've got to debase our currency. We've got to raise the cost of labor just to compensate, just so we maintain a minimum standard of living, okay? Because every job is important, okay? I'm not saying people that are highly educated aren't important, but highly educated people have to admit that the people at the bottom of the economic rung are very important too. And there's no reason, there's no logical, reasonable, justifiable reason why you would believe otherwise. That they're as worthy of being prosperous as anybody else. I mean, good God, how evil are, these people running the world? And you want to run, not walk away from this system. It is like the beast system. It is like Satan was running it. This false god Jesus talked about. The love of money. Mammon. You can't serve two gods, and the god was money, okay, in all its sundry forms. We can't have a system of advantage and disadvantage. We've got to get on the track to getting off it, and there's only one way we're ever going to do it, okay, short of the return of Jesus. Okay, the only way is to have a critical mass of understanding of people that say, yes, I want to wean myself off it. So how do you do it? You do it with sound currency. Okay, that's what's going to lift people out of poverty. That's what's going to end, these crimes of financial desperation. That's what's going to end all these wars of oppression and violence, of profit. Okay, people are making a lot of money off these wars, and it's not funny. What do you think's been propping up the stock market? Okay, it's literally like blood money. And look at these troops. The most innocent parties in these wars. These guys are taking their lives right and left. And these are the people with a conscience that feel remorse. Okay? And they're saying it's wrong. There's a lot of them are speaking out and saying, you know what? I figured this out. I figured it out. Like Smedley Butler, the famous Marine Corps general, who said plainly, war is a racket. Okay? Nobody's attacking us. We've got terrorists right in our own government working. Everybody knows 9/11 was obviously an inside job. Put the pieces together. It doesn't make any sense at all. You've got a group of over 1,500 architects and engineers out there saying impossible. Impossible. These buildings were meant to sustain multiple airline hits and stand. It's the most ridiculous theory in the world. Okay, you start looking at all the way that the parts to the building were hustled out by Giuliani. Who was involved with this? The fact that one of George Bush's brothers was in charge of security at the World Trade Center. On and on and on. I saw a mainstream media article with Dick Cheney's actually admitting his involvement. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. As for the greater good, you've got to understand, folks, oh, it's for the greater good. Like this environmental thing. Oh, the Earth's overpopulated. People are going to ruin the Earth. We got to cut back on CO2. Well,